I'm not gonna say that anything. I don't think the music industry actually needs saving. I think the music industry as it just needs to die. It needs a complete rebuild from the ground up, which is already happening, obviously. And what's very interesting to me is that it's not like the music industry as we know it is dying, and then this new music industry that kind of resembles it is going to, with new rules, is going to spring up in its place. What I see happening is music as we know it, as we experience it, and we find it, and listen to it, and connect with it, has changed completely and will change for this whole new next generation of people. And so, and it's smaller, it's much more empowering to the artists who are making it because they can directly give, make, and communicate with their fans, unlike the old days where everything had to be giant or non-existent. And and everybody is doing it themselves. They're doing it in different ways. But artists are unfortunately in some ways by necessity having to just simply do their business. You know, the way it used to be. I mean, I think way back in the day, you know, you had to have supporters, you had to have patrons, you had to, you know, go from town to town with your story and hawk it and hope that it sold. No. I think people should do it and I think people will do it, but I don't think there's going to be one way. I don't think that everyone's going to decide all of a sudden like this is the way we're going to do it. Now everybody come do it this way. It's just going to be it's going to be infinite possibilities, and it's going to be up to the artists in question to decide how they want to exchange their goods for music, or their money for goods, or you know, there's going to be like I said, an infinite variety of ways that you can have, music, experience, profit, connection. There's so many things you can do, and as an artist there's so many ways you can choose to do it, that I don't think all of a sudden in 5 years everyone's going to wake up and say like, oh, Radiohead was right, we have to do it this way. I think some bands are going to do that, and for some bands who are at certain points in their careers it's going to work. um well, I mean, if that's true, and I could believe that because that all just starts to talk, sound like semantics, then it's also true for Radiohead and for, any other band out there. Because it's never just about the music. Ever. I don't buy that for a second, you know? Because behind the music is always the people and the emotion and the intention. And when you buy the music, you're buying everything, Or when you're downloading it for free, you're downloading it. You know, it's impossible to separate the art and then the artists who are making it and the story behind both. It's everything, all mixed up together. So, sure, I mean, I can believe that that's true, but then if it's true for me, it's pretty much true for every artist out there. I don't think I'm special that way. Well, I don't think it's procrastination, it's a choice. Um, but no, I mean, it's certainly not, you know, it's a choice I make and I often regret. But then again, it's also like how much, every artist has to make that really difficult decision about how to spend their time. And then there's everything from hiding in a cabin in Bali and just playing your guitar alone to, living in the middle of New York City and doing flash gigs on Twitter every afternoon and, being hyper connected and not spending a lot of time on your craft, your musical craft. So you've got your musical craft on the one end, and on the other end, you've got what you have to do to actually, take your music to people and wave it around. And everybody I know, every single artist I know struggles with this question. I don't know a single fucking person who makes art who doesn't worry that they're too much on this side or too much on this side. And the people who I know who spend a lot of time on their music are jealous of me because I'm so disciplined with my blog. And I look at them and I'm jealous of them because they're so disciplined with their playing and they're so, I feel, sometimes so much more passionate about the making and the writing. But we're all looking at each other going like, well, you've got it figured out. No, fucking you've got it figured out. And it's, it's very similar to the thing. I used to talk about this all the time of classical musicians and rock musicians. Always going like, oh, if only I could be like you and just, get on stage and make shit up. And all the rock musicians looking at the classical musicians being like, oh, like we're really ashamed because you're real. And both of these groups of people feeling really insecure, and very few being totally just committed to the idea that it's fine that they happen to be doing this. I think so. I think so. I think boredom is very important for imagination. But everything changes, right? And so I wouldn't want to sit here and be like this grumpy old person judging the teenagers nowadays for sitting around on the internet all day because for all I know, their minds are developing creatively in a new way that I never could have imagined because of the constant input and the constant sharing and the constant stimulus and the inspiration that I didn't have because it was just me and maybe if I booted up my parents' computer, Pac-Man, like really rudimentary Pac-Man. Like that was it. And the word processor. No internet, no international connections, no finding fans of the band that I loved. It was just like me and the records, and my thoughts. But I don't think one is good or bad. I mean, I think you get really, really fucked if you look at the world that way, you know. The same way I'm sure my parents looked at me and what I was doing when I was 16 and they were just completely confused. What the fuck is she doing? We don't understand this. But it's just always going to be like that. I can sit here and judge and say, well, these kids are all going to be fucked and they're not going to make good music. But actually, it's bullshit. I know a lot of 16-year-olds who are great songwriters and, they practice their instruments. They're passionate about making music, about writing, about making art. And so as long as I see it existing, I can't sit here and preach that there's some sort of artistic death going on in the next generation because it's just not true. Yeah, so I don't fucking know. I mean, it's like trying to just explain a color. It's just, I really love him. It's an incredible relationship. I feel incredibly lucky that we found each other. And I've never been able to be so completely myself, inside of a relationship where usually in a relationship there's a lot of changing and adjusting and figuring out and compromising and endless talking about how to do what. And with Neil, it's just so easy. We're so easy for each other that it feels. I sometimes scares the shit out of me because it feels too easy. Like like the work should be harder, but there's almost no work. It's just I really understand him and he really understands me, and there's not much else to talk about. Then we get to just go have fun.